Benny. And look, you've been coming here to Melbourne for a long time, to this tournament, more than 20 years, and I'm just curious sort of what you make of the evolution of this place and the vibes of this tournament. There's been a lot of talk about they're smashing attendance records constantly, and there's also complaints on the other side that it's gotten overcrowded and it's hard to get into courts, and things have gotten maybe too corporate or too commercial on certain different sides of this tournament. So I'm wondering, from your perspective as a veteran of this place who's seen the years go by here and just lots of different tennis angles, like what you make of that sort of push-pull between excitement over growing and the idea that something's being lost by maybe being overstuffed or getting too crowded, too corporate, too commercial, too sort of profit-centric at times.
Having too much crowd on this or any other tennis tournament is a very good problem to have. I think there are much worse problems to have. So I think every tournament wants record-breaking attendance and ticket sales, and that's what I've been hearing actually this year and the last couple of years for most of the slams and tournaments, you know. So I mean, it's a good sign. I mean, obviously we want more attention, more people coming and wanting to watch the tennis live and follow it and live stream, etc. You know, obviously I don't know the possibilities of further expanding the facilities or not. I'm not obviously familiar with that dynamic, but I like what I have seen as evolution of this tournament. I like when the tournament is nurturing a mindset of always wanting to improve and get better in terms of facility, providing better conditions for players to practice, play, recover, and that's what I've been seeing. I mean, first time I came over to Australia, for the juniors, 2003, I think, or something like that, 2005 for the...
For a short while. What if I told you that achieving the highest level of success can turn out to be your biggest enemy? That the fame you've spent your whole life pursuing may put you in a cage with no way out? I'm going to tell you a story that isn't some attention-grabbing headline. This is an in-depth exploration of a world that will make your mind spin. Here, we're talking about Novak Djokovic, a man who has basically witnessed everything in the tennis world, now talking about what actually happens in Melbourne behind closed doors. Get ready for his recent admission regarding the whole chaos surrounding the increasing Filipino phenomenon. All of your preconceived notions about professional tennis are about to be completely upended by Alex Eala. What is actually going on here, then? Is this simply what occurs when excellence reaches a boiling point, or are we witnessing a total organizational collapse? Here's the worst part. Why does Djokovic genuinely believe that the biggest issue anyone might encounter is crushing crowding? Let's dissect this entire situation, one component at a time.
And I remember we were using the Gym B, as it was called, which was across the road. Forgot what the name of that AFL club is, Essendon, maybe, something like that. Sorry? Collingwood, sorry, my bad. I know there's a big rivalry, so I apologize. And, you know, so they were allowing the Australian Open to use their facilities and the bigger gym, you know, ice baths and everything. And then obviously there was an expansion of the facilities with the National Tennis Center, with indoor courts, more practice courts, better recovery, more locker rooms, you know, better facilities for the player dining. So all positive signs, to be honest. You know, I think Australia has always been one of the best in that. So I don't see any negatives there. And now it's really about, you know, how do you find balance and how do you manage the amount of people that is entering the premises, and, you know, whether I saw the other day with Alex Eala, you know, that's been a talk, and which is understandable. You know, there's some players coming from respective countries, like she's coming from Philippines, which is now a big deal. You know, she's been the biggest ever, you know, tennis player from that country, which is a big country, and there's a big interest. So things like that happen. I mean, it's you could argue that it was, you know, maybe a poor schedule, and maybe they could schedule them on a bigger court. Yes, but again, she's so young and she's just coming through. So and obviously the first couple rounds, the schedule is so packed. The big courts with big names, it's difficult. It's not easy to manage that, but. Again, it's a good problem to have, to be honest. Let's just imagine if there's a lack of people coming, or that stands are empty. That's a bigger problem. I mean,
the chat began with what appeared to be a straightforward query about how things have changed and how the mood feels right now. However, Novak's answer took us on a time machine trip that took us back 2 decades to an entirely other planet. Shut your eyes and join me in visualizing this. We're discussing young Novak in 2003, possibly 2005, but it's more important to know where this all happened than the precise year. Forget about the amazing glass buildings and cutting-edge facilities you see all over the place these days. Are you curious about the actual location where tennis greats used to work? They were working out in a simple gym. Yes, we are discussing a typical gym that was actually owned by the Collingwood Football Club. Are you able to comprehend that? In a room they had to borrow from across the street, future world champions were practically sharing training equipment and ice baths. You can hear Djokovic's amazing blend of happy memories and utter wonder at how drastically things have changed since then when he reflects on those early days. From those incredibly humble beginnings, we have grown to the National Tennis Center, which has futuristic-looking indoor courts, science fiction-style recovery facilities, and player dining options that rival the world's most upscale eateries. Australia was building something that looked like the tennis empire, not simply making small changes here and there. Here's something no one discusses, though. Every empire of this size eventually encounters the same unavoidable obstacle. It is overrun with people. This leads us to the topic that everyone is discussing in low voices, the elephant in the room. Is there a breaking point in the overcrowding? Has this competition become a commercial monster that is practically eating itself alive? The complaints continue to come in from all sides. The crowds have grown to the point where many people find them to be totally overpowering, and fans are continuously irritated by how difficult it has gotten to actually get into courts. However, Novak's quick response to this struck like a well-placed winner later on. His remarks were brutally honest and icy. He referred to it as an issue. Yes, but then he added something that surprised everyone. It's actually an incredible problem to have, he remarked. That's exactly what you heard. Djokovic sincerely thinks that crowded stadiums and tickets that sell out in a matter of seconds don't indicate a crisis. This is the greatest fantasy scenario, in his opinion. Take a moment to consider it from the other side. Imagine what it would look like if you could hear a pin drop during games and the stands were mostly empty. The true disaster that keeps Novak awake at night is that. The idea of no one showing there at all, not the never-ending lines of people waiting to enter. However, from this point on, the story becomes much more intense. When they began discussing Alex Eala, the absolute golden child of Philippine tennis and the name that is presently dominating every debate in the sport, it was the most combustible section of the entire interview. Her circumstances weren't just the result of inadequate preparation and organization. No one could have predicted this fan eruption. Drawing from decades of experience that you can't purchase or fabricate, Djokovic presented the unsettling reality that some powerful people were frantically attempting to deny. He immediately stated, "You could definitely make the argument that the scheduling was poorly handled. A directed mission was there. They had placed a celebrity whose fame spans the entire country on one of the smaller courts. Try to picture what truly took place in this situation. While the people in charge of the show are frantically trying to find out what to do, thousands and thousands of people are trying to fit into the same place at once, and the entire nation is supporting their champion." However, Djokovic has a whole different perspective on the entire crazy event. He perceives the emergence of something genuinely unique among all that chaos. He notes that she is speaking on behalf of the Philippines. She has become the biggest thing in their athletic history, and we are discussing a whole nation that has been yearning for this type of grandeur. Her bouts were surrounded by complete turmoil, intense crowds, and pressure. That is the best evidence that tennis is still relevant today. The sport is still very much alive and well. Managing these enormous crowds during the tournament's opening days may be a logistical headache, especially since all time slots are fully occupied and the top courts are automatically designated for the greatest known names. It's a very difficult task, but as Novak says, simply think about what would happen if no one showed up. That would be the actual catastrophe. Here is Djokovic's conclusion, presented with a ruthless honesty that only someone who has experienced everything can muster. Turbulence is inevitable when something expands this quickly, and evolution hurts, but the alternative to all of this turbulence is to watch the sport gradually become irrelevant. We are currently living in what is nothing less than a new golden age, with enormous waves of new followers coming in from all over the world and decades-old customs colliding head-on. I want you to think about this question for a while. Would you rather battle your way through enormous crowds to see history being made in front of you, or would you prefer the calm and tranquility of a half-empty stadium where you can hear every footstep? Give that some serious thought, since your response could affect the future of this entire sport. For a short while. What if I told you that achieving the highest level of success can turn out to be your biggest enemy? That the fame you've spent your whole life pursuing may put you in a cage with no way out? I'm going to tell you a story that isn't some attention-grabbing headline. This is an in-depth exploration of a world that will make your mind spin. Here, we're talking about Novak Djokovic, a man who has basically witnessed everything in the tennis world, now talking about what actually happens in Melbourne behind closed doors. Get ready for his recent admission regarding the whole chaos surrounding the increasing Filipino phenomenon. All of your preconceived notions about professional tennis are about to be completely upended by Alex Eala. What is actually going on here, then? Is this simply what occurs when excellence reaches a boiling point, or are we witnessing a total organizational collapse? Here's the worst part. Why does Djokovic genuinely believe that the biggest issue anyone might encounter is crushing crowding? Let's dissect this entire situation, one component